Welcome to the Housing Shift. I'm your host, Raj Rajendram. Before we get into today's episode, a quick word from our sponsor. Service Charge Pro is the platform helping housing providers fix messy spreadsheet-based service charge processes. Service Charge Pro is built to make accuracy easier, compliance simpler, and to help rebuild resident trust. If you're in housing and service charges are a pain point, check out Service Charge Pro. Link in the comments below. Right, on to the episode.
Welcome to episode 8 of the Housing Shift. This episode is called The Future Workforce in Housing, Automation, Skills and the Next Generation. Today's topic is something that sits right at the centre of the sector's future. We're going to chat about the skills that we need, the job roles that might be changing through automation and AI, and how we attract and develop the next generation of talent into the sector. With me today, I'm delighted to have Ettan Bazil, founder of Help Me Fix and founder of Raft. Hey Ettan, how's it going?
Hi, I just watched my disappearing hand. Thanks for having me on. Here's my magic trick for the day. Good to be here.
Founder slash magician, both rewarding careers. So Ettan, you've been thinking deeply about where work is going in housing recently. So it's really cool to get you on here. Do you want to give everyone a bit of a background on who you are and what you've been up to recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I was a gas engineer and plumber. I had a physical business fixing things in properties, plumbing, heating, gas, electrical. And then I essentially decided to try and solve a few problems in the construction sector. So my day-to-day business saw loads of inefficiency in repairs. So we would drive an hour from one county to the next county, be in the property for 5 minutes, flick a switch, and then off we went. And so I realized that really wasn't a very efficient way to do repairs. And so I built a video triage platform called Help Me Fix, which connected tenants to tradespeople when they had an issue. So they would click a button, get connected to someone who'd then walk them through the job. And that became quite successful. So we mainly served the private rented sector initially, letting agents and landlords, and then we moved that into social housing because obviously bigger sector, big problems. And then we realized that we had, about 3 years in, we realized we had a lot of data. So we had 100,000 video triage recordings, job reports, and around 500,000 images. So we then took all that, put it through some AI models, and outputted this beautiful database of perfect triage sessions, synthetic triage sessions, which we called the triage database. And then we built an AI model on top of that to fix things. We called it Aiden. And essentially it was a first line of defense for our clients. So Aiden would try and triage the issue and solve the problem. And if it couldn't solve the problem, it would then escalate it up to video with a qualified tradesperson. And that product went bananas and scaled up really quickly. And now I think we serve probably about 250,000 units across the private rented and social housing sector with our product. Help Me Fix was then acquired by the good people at Arion in August, and now I'm heading up their AI innovation, delivering kind of AI operationally across the business and also inside product. So a real journey from fixing toilets to delivering AI strategies for £3 billion corporates within sort of 6 years.
It's the AI hype dream.
It is the dream.
Well, it is. No, congratulations. Such exciting stuff. We should also mention as well that we obviously met through the PropTech peer group, so it'd be remiss of me not to give Stuart Davison a shout and our other band of misfits that are in the group. But I guess you graduated now that you've exited. Is that how it works?
Graduated. Yeah, so I was probably one of the first. I think myself and my friend Ryan from TCW were two of the first people on the PropTech peer group, and it's been a real joy to watch it flourish from where it was now, and it's needed, from where it was to where it is now. And I think it's very needed because it brings together suppliers and key stakeholders from the social housing sector. Social housing is all about collaboration. between
For
suppliers,
sure.
you know, housing providers, contractors, and it really provides that kind of hub for that collaboration. The recent event was fantastic, where we all sort of talked about the challenges and how we can overcome challenges together. So yeah, hats off to Stu. He's also a trustee of our not-for-profit Raft, which I can talk about today. So he's really doing a lot of good for the sector and for PropTech suppliers as well.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, thanks, Ettan, for that intro. Let's get stuck into question one. Let's set the scene for everyone listening and watching this episode. There's a lot of noise around automation, around AI, how it's going to reshape work across the UK, globally. If we talk about housing specifically, what do you think a realistic outlook is for how automation is going to change the sector in the coming years?
Yeah, so really good question. So there's a couple of things. So with AI and automation, let's say AI because automation is one thing, but what we're really talking about is AI. That's the buzzword that's on everyone's lips. So AI is going to massively increase efficiency across all businesses, not just the social housing sector. At the moment, it's quite I would say a fairly new concept, especially in social housing. So maybe not in smaller kind of private sector businesses, but in social housing, it's quite a new concept. So there's going to be a discovery phase where housing providers learn about how to leverage AI within their organizations. This will also bring with it new structure. So, director of AI strategy is a new role that's suddenly appeared. My role, head of AI innovation, is a new role. And there's going to be a sort of learning period while organizations get to grips with what it is that they can achieve or they want to achieve. As housing providers start to deploy these technologies within their organizations, they're going to see huge efficiencies across loads and loads of different parts of the business. So anything that can be automated will be automated. A side effect of that, and something that I'm quite acutely aware of and talk about quite a lot and thinking about quite a lot, is what that's going to do to the workforce across all verticals, not just in housing. So as more things can get automated, there's going to be less manual admin work for people to do. And so that will result in workforce displacement, which housing providers will need to think about and prepare for. How are they going to address that? It's not like a private corporation where you can just fire everyone. It goes against the whole ethos of social impact and community and all of the things that are important to the sector. So I would say that's something that needs to be thought about. But I think we're still in the learning phase. So and not just with housing providers, with suppliers as well, suppliers to those providers, to those organizations, they're learning how to deploy these strategies and become more efficient so that they can serve their customers better. So I think at the moment we're in that sweet spot of discovery and learning, but the efficiencies over the next 5 years will become apparent and hopefully, the blue sky scenario is, organizations stop scrabbling around for money to try and fix problems because there's a lot more room for them to maneuver, because rents aren't going to go down; they're only going to go one way, and so therefore there should be additional capital to deploy elsewhere in the community that will make the lives of the residents better.
Strong answer for a big question. So if you mentioned there about the displacement, and something else that you talked about a lot recently is around the shortages actually that we're seeing in certain skills, and especially in repairs and compliance. So how do those two realities interact in your opinion? We've got essentially the back office administration displacement coming around the corner, and we've got this huge skills gap.
Yeah, blue sky is a perfect combination, right? So you've got this global trade skills shortage. We don't have enough people to build the houses that we want to live in. We don't have enough people to fix them. We've got tradespeople retiring and not enough apprentices coming through. And then on the other hand, we're going to have all these people looking for something to do that can't be automated by AI. So you've got this kind of perfect storm of circumstance. Um, so I think that, in a perfect world, these people, that are going to be displaced could retrain to fill that gap in trades. However, that's blue sky thinking. In the real world, there's other problems around construction and trades and training that I think need to be solved before that can happen. So in a perfect world, 300 million displaced workers across the globe. Let's say 10% of them decide to get their hands dirty and learn a trade. Well, that's fantastic for trade skills and construction as a whole. Um, on a realistic tip, we need to make sure that we have the right infrastructure and resources in place to get those people from, hang on, I'm displaced, I don't have a job, to, oh, wow, I'm now this skilled electrician, earning really, really good money and able to add value over in the social housing sector. And that's kind of one of the things that I'm really concerned about at the moment, and where I'm putting a lot of my energy is how do we get those people from point A to point B to solve that problem.
That's such an important point, because it sounds like you didn't aim to be where you are right now 6 years ago, right?
No.
And we had these like amazing opportunities and dots kind of joined up along the way. And I feel like a lot of people go through life without those dots joining up as it is currently. And you're right, there needs to be a real concerted effort in ensuring that there is support to help people understand what the possibilities are. And do you think that's do you see anything, anything kind of government led in that area, or do you think that's going to be
It's really
this
interesting.
is how I kind of answered the question. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent here, but
No,
yeah.
no, it's a good question. I was supposed to be at 10 Downing Street on Monday. So the Prime Minister
Mm,
uh, pulled together a group of people, constructiony people, right? So we've got influencers that are plumbers, we've got,
yes,
people
yeah.
that are concerned with apprenticeships. And the whole point of the session was to ask these people, why are apprenticeships failing? And what that tells me is that essentially the government are searching for the answer as much as anyone else is.
Yeah, okay.
And I know why apprenticeships are failing. Or I know that I know of the reasons why they're failing, but the government are looking for ways to help because they understand what's coming as well. They know
Mm,
that we're going to have a load of people out of work and, civil unrest, and people can't afford to feed their families. And they understand that people just aren't coming in to construction. And if they come into construction, they're not coming into the social housing sector unless they want to retire, which is a whole different problem that
mm.
we've got over in social housing. So I think at the moment they're looking for answers to the questions, which I'm vehemently giving. To encourage them to invest more into training and into the construction sector as a whole, which just sort of just been sort of left alone for the
Mm.
last sort of 5-10 years. Um, so I don't think it will be government led. I think it will be led by people that care about the construction sector. There's really good people out there. We've got, like Jem Radcliffe from P4P Thrive. We've got Russell Thompson, who's chair of the Direct Works, ex Chippy. We've got Stu, we've got Ben Virgo, chair of the National Housing Maintenance Forum. These are people that care about the construction sector and they care about social housing. I think those are the people that are going to trailblaze in sort of coming up with clever solutions. I hate the word innovative, so I'm not going to use that, but clever solutions to solve these problems.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally take your point. I think there was some reassurance for me that the government are doing something, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's reassuring, right? Even asking the question is a step.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. Okay, so in terms of young people, then the next generation. I mean, a recurring theme that we've had on this podcast with a couple of other guests has been how do we get young people into the sector? How do we attract people into the housing sector? And now that we've got this new, how can I say, this new challenge, if we call it that, or new opportunity, this new dynamic, AI automation, that we have to build this workforce to kind of thrive alongside that. What do we need to do as a sector to support this?
I mean, look, I can only speak from my domain knowledge, which is construction. Like anything else I tell you would be guesswork, but I can definitely tell you from a construction side what we need to do. I think that, unfortunately, social housing is for someone who's just entering their work journey, is not a sexy place to go and work. So, there's other sort of sparkly opportunities that they might seek um, to pursue. But I also can tell you that from what I see, the job market is so challenging at the moment, and across all fronts. I'm not talking about construction. I'm talking about everywhere. I'm quite active on a lot of trainee and employment sort of groups on Reddit, and some people have been looking for something for sort of 2-3 years. They just can't find a job. They just want to work. They want to find something to do. So I think it's, what's the recruitment and retention strategy of a social housing provider? Where are they looking for these people? If it's in the job center, nobody goes to a job center to look for a job. That's like proper 1990s. I don't know anyone that's ever done that. So, how are you recruiting into your organization? Um, and I think there's a real basic thing here, especially with construction, which is what's the package? The I was speaking at the Direct Works event a few weeks ago, and some people are saying, well, you've got to, with tradespeople, it's all about social value and community and impact, and you need to represent your social values, and it's not. It's about money, and if you're advertising £27,000 for a gas engineer to come and join your organisation, and they can earn £60,000 by just going and doing day work for a builder, then that's your problem. And that's why we see apprentices train in social housing, then leave social housing to go over to the private sector to go and start their businesses and do what they need to do, and then come back to the sector when they're looking for a pension and a route to retirement, because they come back to the social housing sector to basically finish up, which is a huge problem. We've got this missing bit in the middle of competent and qualified tradespeople. So I think recruitment and retention strategy, what's the package you're offering, and also just how do you make it a bit more exciting for people that are entering the sector? What's the message? But I honestly believe that, where you recruit and how you recruit is a really big thing. How are you speaking to people? Are you listening on social media and targeting these people to be able to? Are you headhunting these people? Are you posting on job sites, or are you just putting a post out at the job center?
Absolutely. I mean, this exactly what Matt Baird and I were talking about when he came on the podcast. And essentially, housing is invisible, the sector, right? And the only thing that we really see on social media is a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post saying, we've built this scheme with 200 units and it's got, da da da. And it's like, that is not appealing to me. If I was a young person, I'm looking for something exciting, like that is not hitting the channels and hitting the right spots for me to be inspired by this sector. We do. You talked a lot about the construction side of things. My domain is back office, right? It's finance and tech, and yeah, similar situation. Your pay is not as much as the private sector, but you do have the opportunity to work for an organization that is solving real problems, housing people, keeping them safe, trying to keep them healthy. But we really undersell that purpose as well. We don't. I was talking to Matt and saying that I've been in the sector 18 years, and for the first 15, where I was, just working the sector, not doing anything, business or founder related, I didn't have any interactions with residents really. And it was very much like come in, like churn out your spreadsheets, do what you've got to do there, like try and get some purpose out of that and go home. And I don't think we're fostering that enough from the first time somebody joins these organizations.
Yeah, and also I think, look, and this is a bigger problem, right? So social housing can be glacial, right,
Mm,
in terms of speed. And there can be frustration in people that are passionate and do want to get things done and want to make a difference, but they can't because, and I've seen this myself, and I've seen people actually leave the sector because of the
mm,
frustration of not being able to help that community that they're trying to serve, because they're so restricted in what they can do, and how fast things move. I think that um, with the emergence of AI will come new structures within social housing which encourage and foster like innovation and moving at pace, and break things quickly, and
mhm.
obviously not for residents, but as in like in terms of operationally. And I think that will help. Having the sector will probably be pulling in fresh blood from outside of the sector to help to solve some of these, not challenges, but missions over the next
Mm.
couple of years. And hopefully that will bring some new life in as well. But yeah, you're right, it's invisible. I've never seen a job for social housing when I've been advertising or even looking myself in the past. So yeah, um, multifaceted is the reply.
So, I mean, you made a point there about the sector moving glacially. I think we could have a whole podcast to talk about that and what some people are trying to do to speed that iceberg along. But yeah, I think it'd be good now to think about some practical steps for providers. So we've set the scene. We've talked about what's coming around the corner. What's potentially going wrong. What can housing providers do, regardless of kind of automation, like if they've got early career staff, apprentices, those switching careers into housing, what are some practical steps that they can take on?
So I think there's a real, and again, I think we touched on this idea when we spoke previously, but if you've got a contact center of, I don't know, 100 people or 200 people, and you're currently implementing an AI strategy to improve efficiency within the organization, what you're actually doing is saying, right, well, we don't need 100 people in the contact center. We need 20 people in the contact center. And that's going to free up all this resource and everything. But what's going to happen with those 80 people? What's the pathway to work for those 80 people? Now, as I said, there's a real opportunity here. We're short of, especially if you've got like a DLO, right? We're short of tradespeople. We've got too many contact center agents because we're going to replace them all with or some of them with voice AI. So what about looking at things like programs to, take reskill those people from one part of the sector to another part of the sector where it's really needed? What about upskilling staff with skills like being able to use AI and automation to make themselves more efficient, to make their work more efficient, more enjoyable. Um, Again, I think it all comes down to skills and training. And I think really that needs to be part of any AI transformation that any housing provider is looking to implement. Yes, you have a strategy for building the AI, implementing the AI, implementing these tools, but also have a strategy for what you're going to do with the people that are no longer required in their current roles because of that AI transformation. How do we then move them into more fulfilling roles, or something different, or upskill them to work in different parts of the sector? That's something that I would be focusing on. In terms of apprenticeship programs, like, do you have an apprenticeship program? Are you actually actively taking on apprentices? Because at the end of the day, if you were to really look at the numbers, especially as I say with with companies that have their own in-house labor, what's the percentage of trainees to let's say senior technicians? I guarantee you it's not 50%. And actually it needs to be, between sort of 30 and 50% to be able to replace the ones that are going to retire. And that's not, and in terms of, if you don't have a direct labor workforce, what are you asking of the contractors that you're working with? What's their apprenticeship strategy? How do they retain new blood? Look at these kind of things. They're becoming more and more important, because ultimately what will happen otherwise is that, damper mold will get worse, disrepair will get worse. There'll be no one to fix these properties, which will create, and essentially that's what this sector is. It's a group of houses that people live in that need to be built and maintained to keep that person warm and living to an acceptable standard. So that should be a massive focus.
Going back to basics, I think it's something interesting that you mentioned there that sparked a thought in my mind is, you talked about retraining and upskilling people to sort of deal with the new kind of AI technology. And actually, we've seen that the pace of change with this new technology is just insane, right? And like, even a year ago, the stuff that we had available to us is basic compared to what we've got now. And actually, there is probably a role, and going back to what you said about like trying things and breaking things within organizations, of taking people out of these teams, these displaced roles, and creating these kind of little kind of improvement teams and laboratories within the domain. So they've got the domain expertise, they're within that area, but they're now just keeping up with the latest technology and seeing how that improves, and then passing that through to BAU. That is blue sky thinking.
It is blue sky thing, but what you're talking about is creating basically like pods of entrepreneurs, and that's something really special. That's being done, that gets done over in sort of other sectors. Where you have a small crack team of the A team that are bringing in these cool solutions and deploying them, and the best people to advise on these solutions. So as part of my work at Arion at the moment, I have my key champions from each department to tell me, okay, well, tell me what the real problem is, and then we'll see how we can fix that problem. And you need that knowledge and experience, and it needs to stay in the organization because it's essential. And someone needs to essentially make sure that these automations and agents are doing what they're supposed to be doing and not causing havoc, which they can easily do if left unchecked. So there's never been a greater need for the knowledge and experience that comes from being in the sector from a long time and going through the pain and understanding how the processes and how they work. So agree.
And not just being in the sector, but being in that organization, right? Because each organization has its own context, has its own way of working, and actually translating that into AI and new processes is super important task. Okay, so we're on to our final question. So every guest gets a magic wand. Some people have decided to take 4. There you go. That's some people. If you could fix one thing about housing prepares its future workforce, what would that be? And this is your blue sky thinking.
It's increasing the amount of new entrants. That if I could wave a magic wand, the way that you solve a lot of the problems that we have is by bringing more new blood into construction. That's what I'm trying to do through our not-for-profit Raft. I think if you could wave that wand, you would solve a lot of problems. That's my magical, just quadruple the amount of trainees going into construction, and you'll solve half of the problems in housing repairs.
Love it. Do you want to give everyone a little brief rundown on what Raft does? Because I think
absolutely. So Raft is, I suppose you call it, my passion project. So I've trained 8 apprentices throughout my career, of varying success rates. But essentially, we started Raft as a way to support apprentices in their last year of training, so last year of education, and then first year out on the tools, which is really a really challenging time for apprentices. So they get qualified, and then they're like, "Thanks a lot, right, off you go. There's your 5 jobs. Crack on." And it's a terrifying place to be in, right? So you're suddenly on your own. And so Raft was originally a way for us to support those apprentices using digital tools. So we gave them access to AI, gave them access to video engineers from Help Me Fix. So if they got a problem, they got stuck, they could just speak to Bob, who'd help them, do whatever it is they needed to do. And then it started to expand. So we started to support a few colleges by just giving their apprentices these tools. It's obviously free of charge. It's a not-for-profit. And then it was like, well, how else do we help? So we started partnering with other organizations such as City Plumbing, who are donating like vouchers for apprentices so that they can get their tools and anything else that they need to get and stuff like that. And then most recently, I've been thinking about and speaking to trades businesses about why aren't you recruiting apprentices? Like, what's the problem? And they're saying, well, the problem is there isn't enough government funding to help support us, even with the apprenticeship levy and all that kind of stuff. And then, we train them and then they leave after 3 years. So, and this is not just social housing. This is trades businesses all over the country. And so therefore, we don't have not only do we not have enough coming in because trades businesses won't train these apprentices, but we lose 44% of them during the apprenticeship because it becomes too much, or maybe they're made redundant or whatever. So Raft helps to solve the retention problem by supporting apprentices whilst they're training and when they qualify. But we're now trying to solve the top of funnel problem by creating pathways to work for trainees that are outside the traditional government apprenticeship system. So we've developed something called Raft Compass, which essentially matches an apprentice with a training provider and an organization to basically take them on for 12 to 18 months. The organization gets the learner free of charge. So they're essentially not having to pay for that learner. We pack in 12 to 18 months of field training and classroom training to make sure that they're work ready and they've got the right experience. And then at the end of that period, the organization can then offer them a position within the organization, but they haven't had to shell out anything up front, which means that there's less barriers to taking those people on to shadow the engineers. So using a combination of that, the digital support we offer, the third-party support from sponsors and partners. And thank you, Arion, for sponsoring Raft. Just a public shout out. Love you. We're trying to solve the problem at both ends. And we've partnered with Places for People Thrive to help their apprentices. We've partnered with a couple of training centres here in Bedfordshire, and really just looking to get housing providers on board that are willing to take on trainees, and also to help to support the program, which again is completely free. We offer the program free, so if they're willing to support us as well, that would be wonderful. And there's a lot of good people especially from the social housing sector, that are supporting the mission, that are on the board, that are spreading the word. So yeah.
Super cool stuff, mate. You said it's a passion project, but I think that's your purpose project, really.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Love it, love it. Well, look, thank you for joining me on this one. It's been a big one. Lots
Thanks,
for the
man.
sector to think about. Lots to think about how AI is going to reshape roles, and how we're going to create these conditions for our next generation to thrive in the sector. So thanks for joining me.
No worries. Thanks a lot for having me, Raj. Take care.
Thanks again for listening. If you liked that episode, please subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, and I'll catch you on the next one.